Have you ever wondered how Nigeria, a country rich in natural resources, has become a failed state? This narrative begins with the birth of Nigeria's independence, a time when opportunities abounded and the future was bright. Yet the early leaders who should have been the custodians of this promise chose a different path, one that led to the current state of the nation. After the euphoria of independence faded, the leaders who were entrusted with the task of nation-building allowed the intoxicating allure of power and personal gain to cloud their judgment. Corrupt practices became the order of the day. Funds meant for development projects were diverted into personal coffers, creating an alarming wealth gap and stunting the nation's growth. To consolidate power, these leaders played on tribal sentiments and religious differences, promoting nepotism and favoritism. They created an environment where one's tribe or religion determined the opportunities they had access to. This deep-seated nepotism and tribalism, instead of unity and equal opportunity, became the backbone of the Nigerian state. Religious bigotry was another tool wielded by these early leaders. Rather than embracing and celebrating the rich diversity of religious beliefs in Nigeria, they used it as a dividing tool. They fostered an atmosphere where religious differences were not just recognized but were magnified and used as a basis for discrimination. These practices laid a shaky foundation for a nation that was supposed to be a beacon of hope on the African continent. They built a house on a faulty foundation, and now the cracks are evident for all to see. The consequences of these actions are the social, economic, and political challenges that Nigeria grapples with today. Indeed, the seeds of Nigeria's predicaments were sown by its first leaders. Their actions and inaction set the precedent for the culture of corruption, bigotry, and nepotism that has become synonymous with Nigeria's leadership. The genesis of Nigeria's failures can be traced back to these leaders who chose personal gain over the prosperity of a nation, and the impact of their choices continues to echo through the generations. As the baton of leadership was passed on, the situation only worsened. This is a tale as old as Nigeria itself, a tale of leaders who, rather than uplift the nation, plunged it further into the depths of despair. Consider the presidents who came after the dawn of our independence. Each one, in their own unique way, contributed to the country's decline. They promised change, they promised progress, yet all they delivered was an intensification of the very problems they vowed to solve. Corruption, nepotism, and tribalism became the currency of their regimes, and with each passing day, the dream of a prosperous Nigeria seemed to fade a little more. But it wasn't just the presidents. The unchecked rascality of the Nigerian senators, too, played a significant part in this downward spiral. They wielded their power with reckless abandon, disregarding the cries of the people they were supposed to represent. Their actions, or more accurately, their inactions, painted a clear picture of a government that cared more about personal gain than the welfare of its citizens. And let's not forget the governors. Their lack of a patriotic spirit was evident in their governance. Their focus was not on serving the people, but on enriching themselves and their cronies. They turned a blind eye to the issues plaguing their states, choosing instead to bask in the perks of their positions. Then, there were the commissioners and local government chairmen, the supposed grassroots leaders. They too were caught in this web of corruption, siphoning off funds meant for development and leaving their communities in a state of perpetual stagnation. The trail of corruption was long and winding, touching every facet of our leadership. And with each passing day, the damage it wrought became increasingly evident. The leaders who were supposed to guide Nigeria to greatness only dug it deeper into the abyss. Sadly, the rot did not stop at the executive and legislative arms of government. The judiciary, often referred to as the last hope of the common man, has been tainted by corruption. Judges, who are supposed to uphold the rule of law, have been accused of selling judgments to the highest bidder. This has resulted in a lack of confidence in the justice system, and when the people lose faith in the judiciary, the society is left with chaos and anarchy. The security systems are not exempt from this decay. The police force, which should be the people's protector, has been turned into a tool for intimidation and oppression. Cases of extrajudicial killings, illegal detentions, and harassment have become so common that they no longer shock the populace. Meanwhile, the military has been embroiled in allegations of human rights violations and lack of accountability. Insecurity has also been exacerbated by a lack of proper equipment and welfare packages for security personnel. Many of our brave men and women in uniform are sent into dangerous situations with inadequate gear, while their families live in poverty. This has not only demoralized the security forces but also made them susceptible to corruption. Moreover, the lack of an effective intelligence gathering system has made it difficult to fight terrorism and other forms of insecurity. The country has been left at the mercy of criminals who operate with impunity, making life unbearable for the average Nigerian. In essence, the corruption and decay in the judiciary and security systems have contributed significantly to the failure of the state. The rule of law has been replaced with the rule of money and power, while the security of lives and property, which is the primary duty of any government, has been severely compromised. These two vital arms of government, which should uphold justice and security, have instead become tools for oppression and insecurity. It's not just the government. The educational sector and the Nigerian people themselves are complicit in this failure. Corruption, like a malignant tumor, has spread its tentacles into the heart of the Nigerian educational sector. This sector, which should be a beacon of enlightenment and the foundation for nation building, has been swallowed by the dark abyss of corrupt practices. From inflated contracts for infrastructural development to the diversion of funds meant for educational resources, the list is endless and disheartening. Moreover, the rot does not stop at the administrative level. It trickles down to the educators themselves, who should be the custodians of knowledge and integrity. There are stories of teachers demanding bribes to pass students, lecturers selling grades for money or favors, and administrators bending admission processes for personal gain. This unscrupulous behavior not only undermines the quality of education but also breeds a generation of Nigerians who view corruption as a norm rather than an anomaly. Now let's turn our gaze to the Nigerian people. You'd expect an uproar, a collective outcry against this corruption. But surprisingly, the Nigerian people seem to have accepted this as a way of life. Some argue it's due to a lack of awareness, while others attribute it to the overwhelming sense of helplessness against a system deeply entrenched in corruption. However, is acceptance the right response? Absolutely not. This complacency is as damaging as the corruption itself. It creates a cycle of corruption that is self-perpetuating and increasingly difficult to break. The Nigerian people must understand that their silence and acceptance indirectly fuel the corruption that is stunting the growth of their beloved nation. It's a two-way street. On one hand, the educational sector needs to be purged of its corrupt practices and regain its status as a pillar of integrity and knowledge. On the other hand, the Nigerian people need to shake off their complacency, raise their voices, and demand a better corruption-free Nigeria. Institutional corruption and the people's complacency have further entangled Nigeria in the web of failure. So how can Nigeria extricate itself from this quagmire of corruption and failure? It's a question that demands a well-thought-out, comprehensive answer. Here we'll discuss 5 crucial ways to eradicate corruption from Nigeria. Firstly, we need to strengthen anti-corruption agencies. These bodies must be empowered with the necessary resources, autonomy, and legal backing to effectively prosecute and penalize corrupt individuals, regardless of their political or social status. But remember, power without accountability is a recipe for disaster. This brings us to our second point, improving accountability. Every public office holder, from the president to local government chairman, must be held accountable for their actions and decisions. Regular audits of public funds, strict performance evaluations, and a robust system of checks and balances can ensure that the power entrusted to these individuals is not misused. Thirdly, promoting transparency is key. In this digital age, technology can play a significant role in ensuring transparency in government transactions and processes. With open data and online platforms, citizens can easily track government spending, tenders, and contracts, making it harder for corruption to hide in the shadows. Fourthly, we need to reform the judiciary and security systems. These institutions play a crucial role in maintaining law and order, and their integrity is paramount. Comprehensive reforms aimed at eliminating corruption within these systems can ensure that justice is served and the rule of law is upheld. Lastly, but certainly not least, we must educate the populace about the evils of corruption. This involves instilling a sense of patriotism and civic responsibility in citizens and promoting a culture that values integrity and abhors corruption. With these measures in place, Nigeria can begin its journey towards becoming a truly great nation, free from the shackles of corruption and failure. Let's remember, change doesn't happen overnight. It requires continuous effort, unwavering commitment, and most importantly, the collective will of a people united in their desire for a better, more prosperous Nigeria.